A lot of boys, tends to be boys, I don't know why. At my last job, it would be the last day of school, and I'd have a kid show up, and he'd be just a mess. He didn't want to go home. Sports and school kept him away from home. You know, and then I'm just, deciding, do we need to get him, professional help? Am I going to read about him in the paper because he hung himself that night? Because he was so distraught about not having a place to hide from his house. Does that make sense? So you never know who's going to walk in your door. You never know what you're going to get. And trying to decide, are you the right person to hold on to that information, or do you have to get that person to the next level? That's a big part of my job as well. Education, again, used to have my own class where I would educate on health and sports medicine. Professional development. In order to keep my license and my certification, I have to constantly show that I'm trying to learn new things and keep updated. And so I go to courses. I have a journal that has a little quiz. So sometimes you'll see me on a bus if I'm traveling. I might be working on a test. And then I do that online, and I have to have such a number right so that I get so many credits. So I have to constantly do things to stay current, is the word I would use, okay? So things as a high school kid, if you're not a senior, things you want to think about, classes-wise. Anything with an ology is usually probably a good thing. You'd be surprised how much sociology and psychology you use in this job. Obviously, anatomy and physiology. I love teaching anat and phys. You'll notice if you come to my room, I've got pictures of body parts all over, and I always want to show kids a body part that they're maybe talking about, that we're concerned about the injury. So, because it's hard to understand when you can't see it. So I like to show anatomy pictures. Chemistry, biology, physics. Physics. I never wanted to take physics in high school, and it was the one class I should have taken in high school. I didn't need it in nursing, but it would have been really nice to have it in athletic training. So, I was afraid of the teacher because he was my homeroom teacher, and I didn't want to hurt my grade because I thought I wasn't going to do well in that class. I was weird back then. Well, I'm still weird, but I'm a pretty big nerd, so I didn't want to hurt my grade point average, so I didn't want to take physics. Obviously, if you have opportunities for sports medicine in a classroom setting, health occupations, kind of what you're doing here, job shadow, cannot tell you enough. People come to me all the time and go, I could not do what you do, all the time. And I go, it's good to know that. It's good to know that. A lot of people know they can't work with the elderly once they take the CNA class. Good to know that. Good to know what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. Student athletic trainer. Sometimes I have, had kids hang out in my room. And last year, during the football season, we had an athlete who couldn't compete. And so what he did was he learned some little taping skills. He would help me stretch kids. He would help me get my supplies together. We missed him this year. He was a great asset. Now, he wants to be a nurse anesthetist. Doesn't want to be an athletic trainer. But he was just in the room, learning things, hearing things. You'd be surprised what you learn by just hearing. I've had kids come back and tell me all the time. They were so happy they hung out in the room because it made them understand things when they got to college better. So don't look for opportunities for yourself. Going to college for athletic training. The problem right now with me talking about it is there are some big changes going on right now in the athletic training world. What I can tell you is that you are going to now require a master's degree in order to get certified as an athletic trainer, all right? And the problem is how many colleges are going to have that program. And that's where, if someone is really interested in athletic training, you've got to do your homework, because you've got to make sure that if you go to a school, can you get out of there with the right degrees and right classes, right work to get to sit for the exam, because there is an exam involved, all right, in becoming an athletic trainer. Just like nursing, there's the boards. For athletic training, there's also an exam, the certification exam. That's handled by the National Athletic Trainers Association, all right? So you have to meet what I would call prerequisites to sit for that exam. And I thought that exam was technically harder than the nursing exam I took in some ways. But like I said, the best advice I can give you is do your homework. You've got to ask a lot of questions. Now in physical therapy, I don't know, did you have a physical therapist come in?
Amanda Bloom came in.
Oh, okay. I don't know if she talked about, you know, most people are getting what's called their doctorate in physical therapy. And I think physical therapists who are being honest are going to tell you, well, that's a master's degree, all right? But they call it a doctorate, okay? Athletic training is getting like that, where you almost have to have this next level before you'll get hired. So the bachelor's degree in athletic training is going away, and it's just going to be you have to have this master degree program. So that's why I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that. I did mention this briefly. Athletic training credentials. You will usually not be hired. I don't know of anybody who would want to fill an athletic training position where you're going to be doing athletic training skills if you do not have somebody who's certified. And then in most states, including Wisconsin, you also have to be licensed. So you have to prove to the state that you're also qualified to be doing this job. And you have to maintain their license. They also require. So I have to not only tell the national organization how much extra credit I'm doing every 2 years, I also have to tell the state. They have their own requirements. So you have to keep track of how much you have each year so that you can keep these credentials up. Because if you don't have your certification, you can't keep your license. So you have to have your National Athletic Training Association certificate or certification before you can keep a license or get a license. So does that make sense? So there's a lot more than just showing up and taping ankles. We talked about this briefly. We're going to just really fast. Places athletic trainers are working. This is a very, very short list. Right now we have athletic trainers who are working in Nassau, are working with police departments, fire departments. They are in companies, that's the industrial setting. We have athletic trainers here in Wausau who are working with certain companies. Because people who especially work on a factory line are like athletes. They kind of do same physical jobs. They get tennis elbow, they get they get wrist injuries, they get carpal tunnel. They hurt their backs. So we've got athletic trainers in professional sports, obviously. The colleges, the high school settings. You can be a teacher and an athletic trainer. That's a very popular way to go, especially at the high school level. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I am actually looking at, in the near future, thinking about changing how I want, because my hands are getting old. They don't like to tape anymore all the time. They don't like to do a lot of real physical, hard, like stretching kids and stuff like that. My hands are very arthritic. I actually have a fractured thumb that I never knew I had. Somehow in my 50+ years I broke my thumb. I don't remember breaking my thumb, but I have a broken thumb that was never fixed. It's loosey-goosey now. So again, I have to start thinking about how am I going to change my position in my next level of life, because this is a very difficult job to do physically for any length of time, mainly because of the hands. And I went into it with carpal tunnel. I got carpal tunnel from nursing. So I kind of came in behind the 8 ball. Salaries. In your packet is a handout about this 2014 information. They are just starting to do the newest update of that. They're working on their survey right now. Again, this is ballpark figure stuff. The kids are, how much do you make? How much do you make? This is not a job you go into for the money. It's kind of like teaching. You don't go into it for the money. You go in because you care and you want to give back in some way. Really quick. Kids are always fascinated about taping. Who has a clean foot who won't discuss everybody in the class? Who's had a pedicure lately? Really? No? Anybody want to volunteer a foot? Seriously, taking their sock off?
Stoker. Don't have socks on.
Oh, I've seen his feet. No, we don't want, no.
Oh. They're like Benny's?
Would you be embarrassed? No. You want to get your ankles? Okay, really fast. So what I want is, Melina, you're going to sit here, just like you're sitting on my table. And then, it doesn't matter, whichever. I don't know how to do that.
Press the
And
button.
then what I would do is just kind of come down around. I would not stand directly behind me. Look, go. No, I'm serious. So maybe some people stay here, some people, on both sides.
Sort of give a view for that camera.
Oh, there we go. See, Melina knows about getting her ankle tape, but what do I like better than tape? What do I want you to wear instead of tape?
Brace.
Brace. Why?
More supportive.
Why?
Because it's stronger.
Why?